The Chicago Tribune investigation has established that child sex rackets operate on a national and international scale involving thousands of adult perverts. Chicago is the headquarters of a nationwide ring trafficking in young boys' chickens in the argot of the streets and placing them in homes to serve male customers or chicken hawks. Although federal law makes it a crime to transport a female under age 18 across state lines for immoral purposes, there's no such protection for boys. In California, CHILDABUSE carries only 2 years in prison. A newsletter for the boy love trade is published clandestinely in the Chicago area by a group of men police say includes an employee of a church-run college. The newsletter serves as a nationwide conduit through which adults can meet with children. In LA, estimate 30,000 children are involved. Some children are allowed pictures and movies to be taken of by their parents. Recently, a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 10-year-old, all children of women who sell themselves, were sold into pornography by their mother. Police smashed a pornographic film operation. Police smashed a special film operation in New York last month and seized 4,000 copies of films of children 8 to 12. In New Orleans, a group of guys formed a Boy Scout troop for the purpose of meeting boys 11 to 15. So they made their own Boy Scout troop. It seems like spider webs strung out all over the nation. In Chicago, when they raided one of those chicken hawk places, there were 5,000 names and addresses of customers or potential customers. So this is a newspaper article from 1977. So this story is called Michigan's Epstein Island, and I'm going to get into that, but I wanted to give you a little backdrop on, it's easy to think that the world is getting worse, and I mean, it is in some ways, but it's gotten a lot better in other ways. I mean, this is 1977. The penalty for doing things with children in California was a maximum of 2 years. So the Chicago Tribune went to dirty bookstores on South State Avenue. Okay, and they were buying. 2 Tribune reporters recently bought more than $80 worth of films and magazines involving kids as young as. So they're going into dirty bookstores on South State Street. It's a big main street in downtown Chicago. Well, it runs out of downtown. But so they were in 412 South State, so they'd be right downtown. So they're going into bookstores, and there was adult films with not adults in them available for sale in the open. So obviously that doesn't go on now. I mean, you get a lot of time for, having a picture on your hard drive. You take your computer in to get fixed, your laptop, and someone sees a photo on it, you're in trouble, and rightfully so. So Chicago Tribune, okay, so they bought, a reporter found a copy of Boys School, a slick color magazine. I don't mean to laugh, but wow. Slick color magazine featuring teenage boys. Okay, bought it for $7.50. So I'm sure the mafia was involved in a lot of stuff. So 1977, let's see, what's inflation? It's probably about 4 to 1, say 3 to 1 from then. So that would be like selling a magazine for $25 or $30 now. So you see the profit margin. Next door at 414 South State, a clerk initially denied selling that stuff, but a glass display case contained a variety of 8mm films. He readily sold 2 films entitled Lolita and Golden Boys for $30 each. Asked if the shop had any copies of Lollitats, the biggest selling magazine in America, the clerk said no, but we should get some in next month. Lollitats, wow. Several months ago, 15 members of the New York-based Odyssey Institute picketed outside the shop with signs reading "Save the Children." A dozen men emerged from the shop with signs reading "Sex is God and I'll read what I please." A clerk in the shop obligingly pointed out a large display of films and magazines to the reporters, who purchased 3 pocket-sized magazines. Hannah and Her Uncle was the title of one of them. Father Teacher, Tangled Life of Child Pegrapher. Okay, so here we're going to get into our story. For all anyone knew, he was a school teacher devoted to his family and community in Port Huron, Michigan. The average guy with aspirations, the fellow next door. A man who had held college degrees in youth services and electronics. Oh, I didn't know you could get a college degree in youth services. What they didn't know was he was one of the Midwest's leading child pegraphers in a PIMP, a flesh profiteer who fed off the young. From a cell in Michigan prison where he is serving a 2 to 10 year sentence for you-know-whatting a 10-year-old, Gerald S. Richards talks about the child pea business. So he got a job at a dirty movie store in 1970 or so. He met people there, and then with the people he met there, he set up his own mailing list. And he started working with this guy named Frank Sheldon. So Frank Sheldon is the Michigan Epstein. Frank Sheldon was born in Ann Arbor. That's where University of Michigan is. I lived there. Very nice city. To a wealthy family. One of his ancestors was a guy named Russell Alger. If you're from Detroit, you're familiar with both Russell Street and Alger Street. That's how prominent this guy was in Detroit's history. He had a street named after his first and second name. He was, or first and last name, is a lumber baron who served as Michigan's governor and Secretary of War under President McKinley. Blah, blah, blah. So this guy, Richard Sheldon, had a trust fund. He went to Yale, and he bought something called North Fox Island in 1960. So this was an island up in northern Michigan, and he built an airstrip there so he could fly in. He was a pilot himself, and he built an airstrip and some cottages there. And then in 1975, so who knows what he was doing before that. So in 75, remember that article I was just reading to you, 77, and his, that was his, where did my newspapers go? That was this guy's partner, Gerald Richards, the one doing the 2 to 10. So this guy, Richard Sheldon, had North Fox Island. By 1975, he had set up something called Brother Paul's Nature Camp, a charitable program. So they were getting, oh God, this is dark. They were getting donations to help runaway boys, emergency care for runaways, boarding retreats. As a special treat, if you were good, you would be taken up to this island. And there, the donors would get to request special films be made just for them, which he would do. He would use this Gerald Richards guy was getting donors for him, and Gerald Richards was the one experienced in making the film. So he bought film equipment. He got himself, he had a Cadillac like all good pimps. Talk about a flesh peddler. So they were, wow. Richards was married, but he also became a homosexual, involved with one of his male models, a 12-year-old who was his babysitter, next door neighbor, assistant in his magic act. You gotta watch out for the magicians, and his solicitor for other young models. He took care of things and nobody ever squealed. Recruiting was the easiest thing in the world. What you want is a kid with no moral religious background, and you've got it made. A kid whose father is absent or who doesn't care about him. They don't have a chance. They're brainwashed. Behind it all, Richards said, is the BL movement, which stands for Boy Love. Promoters of the BL movement publish magazines and newsletters, which contain their philosophy and carefully coded classified ads. It is through these ads that subscribers make contacts for films, pictures, and sex with others who feel the same way about kids as them. With the help of his partner, he incorporated a tax-exempt front known as Brother Paul's Children's Mission. Richards was Brother Paul, so the pimp and the filmmaker was Brother Paul. Wow. Several times they made trips to Chicago. Okay, so Chicago was a hotbed of that. Well, Chicago was a huge city. So this guy got a 2 to 10. He made a lot of money. His partner, Richard Sheldon, let's get back to him. So he was making films up on North Fox Island, which he owned. Worked with several associates. Gerald Richards, a Catholic school gym teacher, who then set up his own newsletter. That's the guy I was just reading the newspaper article about. Dyer Grossman, a wealthy science teacher from the Harvey School named Catahoula, New York. Adam Starchild, a.k.a. Malcolm McConaughey, a convicted fraudster who set up his offshore accounts. The operation, funded as a subscription service where approximately 300 sponsors made tax-deductible donations to the fake charity and received films in exchange. Wealthy contributors could also visit the island to meet the children personally. Escape from justice. On July 23, 1976, Gerald Richards, the guy in prison, was arrested. He told Sheldon he was arrested, and then he started talking. But Sheldon was gone by this time. He did get a warrant put out for him for second-degree criminal conduct. He fled Michigan in his private plane. Before fleeing, he set up a $2 million revocable trust in the Virgin Islands, retaining his access to the money through his associate Starchild before they had a falling out. Sheldon was never extradited and is believed to have died in Amsterdam on September 5th, 1996. So this is left out of there. He married a French woman and got citizenship, lived in Amsterdam. Michigan State Police closed the case, noting the suspect is deceased and cannot be prosecuted, but was obviously involved. This is not that long ago. This is the late 70s. During this time in Michigan, there was something called the Oakland County Child, K-I-L-L-E-R, where there were 4 suburban, white children from kind of upscale suburbs found, which was not that makes their deaths more important, but it's more rare. Generally, people that are victimized by serial killers are prostitutes, poor children, or people that are easily victimized. So this was a big deal. It's still never been solved. And a prime suspect was the son of a guy that was maybe the chief financial officer or something of General Motors, a real high up in the auto industry. And he killed himself. Supposedly he sort of confessed to doing one of the homicides to his therapist, but he killed himself. And maybe not that long ago, less than 10 years ago, a couple guys, I think one died right when they were getting arrested, and the other one's in prison, were convicted of maybe also helping find kids in this neighborhood in Detroit called the Cass Corridor, which is now called Midtown, which is the gentrified area, but that was one of America's white urban slums, which, if you didn't know those existed, you wouldn't learn about them in the media or see them in a movie. But of course, maybe not so much now in 2025, though there probably is still some. But Detroit had neighborhoods like Cass Corridor, Brightmoor, Delray. They were white, horrible slum areas with gangs, people selling drugs outside, high murder rate, blah, 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 full of women that sell themselves and would let their children get snatched up. And this stuff is still if you didn't know that this stuff went on and you're not into it, you would never even think of it because it's so outside of the norm and awful. But when I first got monetized, when everybody first started really making money on YouTube, maybe, 5 years ago, there was something called the ad apocalypse. We all woke up one day and everyone's channel had been temporarily demonetized, and we were all freaking out because, the time it happened to me, it was some auto I think it was Audi or Volvo, complained about their ads running on some like Nazi thing or something. So then YouTube had to go back through like, oh, we didn't know YouTube was full of all this disturbing content. So they started to develop the system they have now where it's kind of hard to get the green dollar sign. That was from that. But then there was another thing, apropos of kids. There was, kids channels make a lot of money. But they had to, well, in fact, I think the biggest earning are those those kids unboxing videos. And I was reading something, and I was like, "Oh, this is a conspiracy theory." Someone was saying that adults that like kids had these codes that they would put. I didn't even really want to read the full description, but I think what it was. Say someone put up a video. Say you put up a video, a home movie, right? And you got a 3-year-old daughter, and she does a somersault, and you can see under her dress or something. They would find the stuff and they would put codes and like different comments of videos and direct you to videos to watch. Now that sounds like, oh, that can't be true. Well, YouTube demonetized everybody and did some type of massive search and cryptography, and they figured out that, oh, there were all these codes, and they had to clean all this stuff off of YouTube. So that's a bad things going on in the world, but there is progress, at least, I guess, in 1977. At least now you got to hide it. In 1977, when I was reading those newspaper articles, you could go and buy, right in downtown Chicago and sure other places, videos with people clearly far under the age of 18. At least you can't do that so easily now. And Epstein Island, North Fox Island in Michigan, in the late 60s and early 70s, or through the mid 70s, through about 1976, was a place where you could donate your money and get a tax write-off, and in exchange you would get films made, if you donated enough, just for you with your special request there on the island. So this really happened. Well documented, and the guy evaded justice. He died of natural causes in 96, and the other guy got a 2 to 10. And he wouldn't say how much money he made. He probably made a lot of money. For those that don't know, the P-graphy industry, one of the mafia's big money earners. They were key components in getting it legalized, or well, in producing it when it was in that gray area of whether it was legal or not. They made Deep Throat, and a lot of those early movies that generated, just Deep Throat made just huge, tens of millions of dollars. And the woman in it didn't get any money. Not that that matters, but they made a lot of money in that. And in fact, if you've ever been to Deja Vu Showgirls, that chain of, I guess they're fully NUDE, but if you've ever been to Deja Vu Showgirls anywhere, that's the biggest girls dancing chain in the world, and that actually comes from the Flint area, maybe maybe it's more like Battle Creek or Grand Rapids, somewhere in Michigan, not Detroit, one of the other city regions of Michigan with mafia money. So the biggest chain in the world, and I did a story on it. I think it's in my members only section. Pretty interesting. So Epstein Island in Michigan, things do get better, but there's still a lot of weird stuff going on. Our profit in that was not American dope.